It's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Hockey News Big Show. As always, I'm your host, Katie Gaus, joined by my co-host, Michael Traikos, and making his triumphant return from Japan, Ryan Kennedy is back. he's maybe jet lagged. We're not sure. He's grinding right now to be here.
We shall see.
We'll see.
We'll go flipping into Japanese here, Ryan. Okay, no konnichiwas or anything.
Yeah, you know what's funny? It's like I did Duolingo for like 2 months straight, and then I basically like didn't try to use it at all. I used like 1 or 2 words when I was there, and I could decipher some of the like characters on signs and stuff, but otherwise it was just like hoping people spoke enough English to let us know what was going on.
All right, well, before we get started, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. I want to know what the coolest / favorite thing that you did while you were in Japan was.
Oh, I mean, there was so many really cool things. We went to like the Super Nintendo Land in Osaka in Universal. That was really cool, just of how it looks. There's not a lot of rides, but the Mario Kart one was really good.
Wow.
But just being in Tokyo, like the Kawakicho neighborhood, there's just like so much going on. There's like a giant Godzilla head that's like perched over one of the buildings, and just like a ton of stuff. So just like going around the different neighborhoods, like going to Shinjuku and going to Asakusa, like all these like really cool neighborhoods that are packed, and there's all these like neon signs and stuff. The Dotonbori neighborhood in Osaka is completely wild. It's all restaurants and bars right on the river. It's like being in Vegas, but with like deep fried octopus everywhere. So yeah, just like the whole experience. I would highly recommend it. Let's put it that way.
I like it.
I'm gonna talk to you because I want to go. I want to just spend the whole time in an arcade.
Yeah, there are so many. Yes, I did the big drum one. Me and the kids, we did the big one with the drums, where it's like Guitar Hero but with big drums. That was a lot of fun.
I'm sure you being a drummer probably scored pretty high.
I thought I did pretty well considering I did not know any of the songs.
It's fair. I just like the fact that if Michael did go there, he wouldn't be able to pronounce the names of any of the neighborhoods that you just mentioned. So he would be really struggling. We'd have to get him some help.
Tokyo, come on.
Tokyo, come on. Yeah. Oh, all right, guys. Well, let's get down to it. We've got some hockey to discuss. We have one series that is locked in. We talked about, obviously, last week, the Carolina, New Jersey Devils that are on a collision course this week. We've got Colorado and Dallas officially locked in. Not that we kind of haven't seen this coming for a while, but it's official. Stars will get that home ice advantage as the 2 seed to start. What do we expect to see from this series in terms of maybe the identity? Is it going to be high scoring, low scoring? And then give us some predictions. What do we think, Michael?
Yeah, we're expecting a pretty boring series, I imagine, right, Katie?
Yeah,
just
right.
low scoring.
No animosity here or drama.
There's no offensive weapons on either team.
Yeah.
This one could be the best series of the entire playoffs. And I say that knowing that Toronto and Ottawa could face in the first round, but let's just talk about like just the offense alone, like McKinnon and Makar against all the offensive weapons that Dallas has. And that's like, I know they're going to miss Miro Heiskanen potentially for I don't know how many games. I hope that he returns sometime in the first round, but even that, we're still there's a lot of question marks. But this one should just be fireworks in terms of run and gun hockey. I don't expect Mackenzie Blackwood to put on a goaltending clinic. I think he's just an adequate goalie. So I'm expecting like 6-5, 7-4 type victories.
Ooh, so fun. That's what we like. What do you think, Ryan?
It's interesting because I think that it could be a lower scoring series if Dallas gets their way. And Mike, I know what you're saying. Like the Stars have so many weapons, and obviously they added Mikko Rantanen, who began the season all the while away in Colorado. So we do get the Mikko Rantanen Bowl, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But with Jake Ottinger in the Dallas net and just the structure that the Stars play with, I wouldn't be surprised if if they took control of the series early on, if we saw a lot of like 3-2 games, and dare I even say it, 2-1, this series gives me like so much anxiety because I've been such a believer in Dallas since the season began as a potential Cup champion. But then I look at Colorado and the additions they made at the deadline, and hey, maybe we'll see Gabriel Landeskog in the series. Right? Like he's played a pro game now in the AHL. So that would be a massive motivator. So it's like I'll pick Dallas just because that's the team I brought to the dance. But
yes,
I mean, honestly, it could go 6 or 7 games either way, and I wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah, Michael, what was your pick? I know we talked about what you expected. Who do you kind of see having the edge? Because this is such a tough one.
Yeah, I want to say it's going to go 7 games, but I actually think that this one could be done in 5 or 6, and I'm going to say Colorado takes it. I'm really impressed with their depth, Ryan. And you mentioned Landeskog. With or without him, Colorado has 3 lines. I think getting Brock Nelson was huge. Obviously, Marty Necas has been great for them, but then you also look at Charlie Coyle, and we've talked about this, Katie.
Yeah,
he's such a great addition to your third line. And then say if you add a Landeskog there, you still got a Arturi Lehkonen on your top 6. You still got a Val Nichushkin. You still got Cale Makar and Devontae's who both provide offense. So I don't see how, like with Dallas missing Heiskanen, I think that's going to be so much of a loss that Colorado is able to take this one.
Yeah, it's tough. And again, like there's so many other little elements that are going into it, right? We've talked about the Mikko Rantanen situation, and obviously there will be some drama and emotion there. Landeskog now playing pro games adds another interesting dynamic and an element to that. I mean, we know that Colorado doesn't have like the game-breaking goaltending, but they've had adequate goaltending and they can outscore their problems pretty much 9 times out of 10. I think how Ottinger plays, which, traditionally he's good, but in the playoffs, he's been known to maybe have a few bad games. So I think that's going to be a huge factor kind of in my mind into how this series goes. But I do feel like Heiskanen totally is like a deal breaker if he can't get back in with what Colorado's got. I just think it's going to be very difficult. So I'm leaning towards Colorado as well. But I hope it goes 7 purely for the entertainment factor. Because my goodness, like we said, this could be the best series we get. So we certainly don't want to cut it short in any way. All right, well, let's talk about a team who's been pretty much rolling the whole year, and now they are officially getting the trophy to prove it. Winnipeg has won the President's Trophy. It's not, obviously the season's not done, but they have clinched it. Historically, though, this trophy kind of has a reputation for maybe being cursed. We see a lot of teams that win it. They don't go on. I think when I looked it up, it was only 8 of the 37 President's Trophy winners when they've been giving it out have won the Stanley Cup. So do you guys believe in the curse? Let's start there, and then we'll get into how maybe Winnipeg has a chance to break it.
I kind of do. And the reason is, I mean, it's certainly better to win the President's Trophy than to not win it. Like, I don't know how many, like, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th place teams have won the Stanley Cup in that span. We know, like, at least one 8 seed has won it. The Los Angeles Kings did that year. But I do wonder, if you look at the teams that have won the Cup in recent years, they've either, won the conference or been, sort of a top 5 team in the league. But then you'll have that President's Trophy team that was like way above everybody else. And I think the problem, and this is where the sort of curse comes in, is you're not playing for anything for like the last month of the season. And then all of a sudden, in the first round, you're playing a team that had to scratch and claw their way just to get in. And they've already been playing playoff hockey for several weeks, if not longer. So I think that's where the curse comes in, is it's just like that vibe shift is very difficult.
Yeah, you mentioned 8 of 37 President's Trophy winners have gone or have won the Cup, but also 8 have gone out in the first round. So you basically have the same odds of winning the Cup or going out in the first round. And I think Ryan nails it on the head here. The fact that you're playing a team that, you said scratching and clawing and is having to play their best hockey at the end of the year, that is a factor. And the other factor is, how many weak teams make the playoffs anymore? Like, there's not an easy series. Like, even if I'm the Washington Capitals in the East, where you got the top seeded team there, you're going to face a Montreal Canadiens team that is basically playing with house money. We just saw Ivan Demidov make his debut, scores a goal and an assist, looks fantastic. He gets added to that roster. So if I'm Washington, I'm going, okay, maybe I don't want to be the number 1 seed anymore, because that Montreal team, especially with how great that Bell Center crowd is, that looks like just a disaster waiting to happen. So I agree with Ryan that, it's less about the President's Trophy winner. It's more about the fact that they're not playing high stakes hockey at this time of year, and you're running up against an opponent that is having to play its best hockey.
All right. Okay. So the curse is really just kind of a convenient way to put an interesting spin on what we just talked about, right? Where you are playing a team that's been in survival mode and you're coasting, and sometimes that switch is hard. I agree with you guys. Although calling it a curse always just makes it a little bit more fun. So let's talk about Winnipeg then, because what they've done this season has been impressive. But can they continue it? What have you guys noticed about their game that you don't like, or think will continue in the playoffs? Can they keep it rolling, Ryan?
I think they can keep it rolling, and it'll certainly help that, if they get past the first round, they're going to play either Colorado or Dallas, hypothetically coming out of a very hard series. But the thing I like about the Jets themselves is the consistency. Their longest losing streak of the season was 4 games, and it was a long time ago. I think they had 2 losing streaks of 3 games. And that's pretty much it. Like, they bounced back really well. And every team's had injuries. The Jets have had injuries, but they've managed to overcome those. So when I look at Winnipeg, I just see this team that's like even keel on an elite level, right? They're beating teams, even when they're, like they lost to Toronto. That was like their first loss of the year after that great winning streak. And then they beat Toronto later on. Like, teams that beat them, they come back and they beat those teams. So I think that bodes really well for Winnipeg, where it doesn't really matter who they're playing. They have the confidence that they can get the job done. And if they drop a game, it always feels like they come back at least 1 or 2 games after that and start rolling wins again.
Okay.
And Ryan, like Winnipeg, they have both elements that you need to be a successful playoff team. They've got game breakers like Kyle Connor, 41 goals this year. Mark Scheifele obviously gets snubbed by Team Canada. He's put up 38 goals, 86 points already. And then you've got the depth. And I think the depth is really where Winnipeg can come at you in waves, where if the first line isn't going, okay, now you've got a second line where you've got some guys there that are 20 goal scorers. Like, I don't know how it's going to shake up, but you can really number these lines 1, 2, 3, 4 and put them in reverse, because they've got so many offensive weapons that are just putting up quiet 15, 20 goal seasons. And like I said, when you can come at a team in waves, that's deadly, because what typically happens is it's all about the matchup game. You shut down the first line. Okay, now it becomes the second line. If they're not going, okay, who's got the better third line? And I think Winnipeg's got the best third line compared to most of the teams that are in the West.
Yeah, and I mean, I've mentioned this on the show previously when we've talked about Winnipeg, but I really do feel like they had kind of an experience that left such a bad taste in their mouth that, not necessarily comparable to losing all the way in a cup final, of course, but like just a kind of a shocking, jarring, upsetting way to go out the way they did last year. And I think they learned from that. And I think that plus everything that you guys just discussed is really going to bode in their favor. I don't see a whole lot of, holes in the armor for this team, but we shall see. All right. Well, for the first time in NHL history, the Bruins, the Penguins, and the Rangers all miss the playoffs. Kind of crazy that it's the first time that's ever happened, but I guess you've got at least one of these teams has always been pretty good, maybe not all at the same time. So which team do we expect to be the first one from this group to make it back, to bounce back, to get back into the playoffs? And if they do that, what moves are they going to have to make to do it?
I'm going to go with the Boston Bruins. And, they're possibly going to get the number 1 overall pick, because they've done a great job of, once they recognize they're not a playoff team, they have really stunk it up. So I could see this being a 1-year reset where, next year they're back at it. And I think the real key for me is going to be what they do in free agency. We know that they have the goalie in Jeremy Swayman. We know that they got a Charlie McAvoy, who is a Norris Trophy, candidate when he's healthy. And they've got David Pastrnak, who has just put up a ridiculous season for a team that has nothing to play for.
Yeah.
But it's the the fact that like there's a lot of free agents available, and if I'm a free agent, Boston's a pretty good market to play in. Like it is an original six market. They always have like Ryan talks about the culture. I think even losing Marchand, the culture doesn't change. I think, being a Bruin means a lot. It's not a market where they have to hunt and convince guys to come play for them. So they end up with a Brock Nelson. I think that would be good in free agency. Maybe a Brock Besser. There's a lot of names out there. Heck, maybe they even end up with a John Tavares or a Mitch Marner. The point being is, even if they get one or two of those names, you add them to the mix that I was talking about and possibly a top 3 pick. Boston looks like they're going to be a team that could fight for a wild card spot next year.
I like it. What do you think, Ray?
I'm going to go with the New York Rangers for a lot of the same reasons, really. Like, why would you not want to play for New York in the most famous arena in the world, Madison Square Garden? And then you look at what they still have during a down season. They have Igor Shesterkin in net. They have Artemi Panarin up front. They have Adam Fox on the back end. So you're talking about trophy winners here, or guys that are elite at their positions. And, Mika Zibanejad, he had a horrible season. There's no doubt about that. He'll rebound. Chris Kreider is still a very good NHLer. JT Miller, they only had him for part of the season.
Right.
What would a full season of JT Miller mean? I think there's a lot of things that they need to do at the managerial level. And we'll talk about that later in the show. But in terms of like the bones of the blue shirts, it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
You could argue that making the playoffs in the Metro might be a little easier also than the Atlantic based on
certainly
teams coming up.
Yeah, like we might only have 3 teams in the Metro make the playoffs this year. And is that going to change? Like Ottawa and Montreal, it feels like they've kind of established themselves in the Atlantic along with the other big 3, the big 3 of Toronto, Florida, and Tampa. So I totally agree with you there.
All right, well, let's dive into talking about, you just talked about a few Canadian teams there. Well, this year's Stanley Cup playoffs could, we're still waiting, but could feature 5 of the 7 Canadian teams. And this will be the first time that 5 Canadian teams made it since 2017. And as you guys know well, I don't need to say it, but I will. Canada hasn't won since 1993 when Montreal did it. So is this the year? Odds are more in your favor than they have been in a while that we see the Stanley Cup brought back to Canada, Ryan?
I think that there's a better possibility this year than there typically has been. Now, granted, Edmonton went all the way to the final last year, but because of some of the matchups that we basically know already, like Colorado and Dallas could both win the Stanley Cup, but only one of them is going to be in the second round. Florida and Tampa Bay are probably playing each other in the first round. Either of them could win the Stanley Cup, but only one of them will be surviving that first round as well. So just right there, you've eliminated 2 really solid contenders.
Yeah.
And then you look, if Toronto and Ottawa play in the first round, you're guaranteed a Canadian team at least in the second round. So to me, it's always been a weird math thing, right? Like it's not like there's something about Canadian franchises that are really necessarily different than American ones. You can talk about like whatever exchange rates and whatnot, but it's still the salary cap, and all the teams are still owned by really rich people. So I don't really think that matters. What it comes down to is just like, like for years, like no blue team won the Stanley Cup, right? And then like Tampa Bay won it twice in a row. So it's weird. It's weird math like that.
I can guarantee a yellow team's not going to win this year, Ryan.
Yeah, it's true. Sorry, Nashville and Pittsburgh.
You make good points, and it's funny because Toronto is the best team. They're probably going to win their division. Winnipeg's going to win their division, and yet the feeling around Toronto and Winnipeg is all about, oh boy, are they going to make it out of the first round? Oh boy, are they going to be able to exercise some demons? And it's because of the past. In a normal situation, we'd be looking at it going, well, Toronto's just been outstanding this year. Look at the team they have. They've got 2 goalies. They've got Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares. All of them are playing great. Look at Matthew Nyes. He looks like he's going to be just a force in the playoffs. But it's about, they've only made it out of the first round like once in the last decade. So I'm not going to pick Toronto. And same thing with Winnipeg. Like they lose against Colorado last year, and it's all about is Connor Hellebuck a big-time goalie anymore? So on the surface, I'd say yes, this is a great opportunity for a Canadian team. Heck, we could see Toronto against Winnipeg in the final, and that shouldn't even be surprising. But at the same time, it's probably going to be surprising. And I think it's all about, what does the first round bring? And if we've got a Toronto still hanging around, maybe a Montreal upsets Washington, maybe Calgary, or I guess they're not even going to be in there. But if Winnipeg's still hanging around, then, the odds are going to be better. But I hope that it ends because, the U.S. has been taking enough of Canadian things lately.
Oh, no.
Let them have the cup back. Okay, Katie?
Okay. Yes. Well, I mean, I don't know if I can speak for all of us for making that deal. We'll see what happens. It is so funny when you say that, though, because by all accounts, there's no reason why we couldn't see Winnipeg and Toronto in the cup final. But I do not in any way, shape, or form feel like that will happen. Like, I don't have any confidence in that. And maybe it's just the historic nature of things. And I mean, eventually things have to change, but it doesn't feel like they're going to. I don't know. Here, let's put this one out. Who has a better chance if you had to pick a team that you think will make it to the cup final? Would you go with Toronto or would you go with Winnipeg? Just looking at
I would actually go Toronto just because that Central really scares me. And if I'm Winnipeg, I got to get past, the first round might not be a big challenge, but then you're going to either face Colorado and Dallas and then maybe Vegas in the third round. Yeah, I'll go Toronto.
That's fair.
I'm going to go Winnipeg just because I feel like the Jets have played so well all season and there's no reason to doubt them. So I think maybe, as you mentioned, I mean, there's the history and all that, but it kind of just feels like things are breaking the right way for the Jets right now.
Yeah. All right. Fair. Okay. Well, we've talked about some of these new teams that are getting in because we mentioned there are quite a few normal occupants that won't be attending the postseason. So we've got some new faces then as well. So which player who has never been in the playoffs are you most excited to see get their first taste of playoff hockey? There's some good ones.
I mean, it's got to be Brady Tkachuk, right? I mean, the Ottawa Senators haven't made the playoffs, or hadn't made the playoffs in years. Brady Tkachuk, just an incredible, physically dominant player, plays with such enthusiasm and passion. We saw him at the Four Nations and, what he could accomplish there. And all of a sudden you're going to thrust him into what is most likely going to be a Battle of Ontario. Like, come on, what else do you need?
These are great points. It's true.
I'm going to go Jeff Skinner, and I don't think he's going to make the same impact, Ryan, that Brady Tkachuk is going to make. Probably he's not going to fight, maybe not even throw a check, but it has been 15 years, and he's played more than 1,000 games to get to this point. I really feel bad for the kind of career he's had. Granted, he's been on some really bad teams, but, Jeff Skinner going to the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time in his career. He gets to go with the Edmonton Oilers, who, I still think they're going to be first round fodder for the LA Kings. I don't see them getting past it, but it's still, it's a long overdue moment for him.
Yeah, I saw someone post that clip from the end of the Titanic or whatever, and that she's like, "It's been 84 years." That's what it feels like for him, and honestly, for any of the players on Buffalo, if we see them get in, I mean, my gosh, talk about overdue and deserved. But I gotta agree with Ryan as my number one guy, Brady Tkachuk. Yeah, and I think it's just because of the player that he is, and maybe the recency of watching his brother win only adds to that. Because we saw how excited he was for Matthew. I mean, my gosh, I don't even know if he would survive winning it on his own when you saw the way he reacted to Matthew winning. So he's one that I definitely have my eye on. I think will be fun to watch. All right, well, let's talk about some teams that are heading into the playoffs with a little bit of a limp. Not to say that this will affect them completely, but it's not helping. Ekholm ruled out for round one for the Oilers. That one's big. But Bjorkstrand down in Tampa, I think they had him in week to week, but they weren't sure. And again, the Lightning brought him in and spent a good bit to acquire him. So this is what he was here to do, is be a playoff guy. And now we're not sure what he's going to look like. So which one's a bigger loss? Or I guess maybe how do you see that affecting these teams?
Yeah, I mean, with Mattias Ekholm.
I think we have the same answer, but I'm going to make an argument for the other guy.
Fair enough. That's good. That's good video work there.
Okay, so the answer is Ekholm, right?
The answer is
Ekholm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
Edmonton defense has been a problem. It's been a liability for them, but Ekholm is kind of the exception to the rule. You take him and his minutes out, and you take the experience out of the lineup that he brought to them during last year's run. I mean, he was fantastic in the Cup final. It's really difficult when I think it impacts how Edmonton would have to attack the Kings with him out of the lineup, because you're going to have to play it a little more safe, I would think, overall as a team. And that's not successful hockey if you're the Oilers.
Yeah, the Oilers are so banged up, Ryan. Like, it's not even Ekholm right now. Like, Chris Knobloch was running through the injuries yesterday, and it was like, okay, this guy's a question mark. Okay, this guy's probable. All right, this guy we're going to get back at some time. This guy's clinically dead, but we're going to see if we can resurrect him if we make it to the conference final. And it's not just Ekholm. Like, Jake Wallman is also a question mark. So 100% it's Ekholm. The argument I'll say for Bjorkstrand, and you're right, Katie, like, they gave up a ton for this guy along with Yanni Gourde. Him and Yanni Gourde have been just outstanding for the Lightning. Like, they've really, concocted a great third line for the Bolts. And Bjorkstrand, 5 goals, 9 points in 18 games. It doesn't sound like much, but in a third line role, that's exactly what you want. And, hopefully he'll get back, because if that Tampa Bay team has to play Florida, you're going to need all the depth scoring that you can get.
Yeah, I think the Ekholm in and of itself is a bigger loss, but it's magnified by the injuries that they already have, the numbers they have. Quick side note, I want to get your thoughts on this because I just thought of it. In the Kings game, Philip Deneau said that he felt like the Oilers were putting out their B squad and that they were trying just to be out there to hurt them. And when Corey Perry was asked about this after the game, he actually swore and then apologized, but he's like, does he not see what's going on? Does he not see what we're dealing with? Like, he's like, we're not out here to hurt guys. But I kind of wonder if you think maybe that could be some very unique fuel that just got added to the fire of this playoff matchup.
Well, considering what Darnell Nurse did to Quentin Byfield in that game, and I mean, Darnell Nurse is not the B squad, let's face it. He's definitely part of the A team in Edmonton. But I mean, in terms of hurting guys, I mean, Deneau kind of has a point, but I think Corey Perry also has a point where it's like, we would love to have our A guys out there, but they're all on the shelf right now.
Yeah, this is why Gary Bettman's a genius for kind of locking us into these divisional matchups, because it's a fourth straight year that these two teams are going to play each other. And they don't sound like on the surface like two teams that should hate each other, but there's a lot of hate there apparently.
Yeah, and it just got more interesting, which is what we all want. We like it. All right, well, there are a few teams this season that have been struggling, and they're either missing the playoffs again or for the first time. One in particular we talked about earlier, we know Boston. Reports are indicating that sources say no changes are expected in the Bruins front office. So Don Sweeney and Cam Neely will be sticking around. So first thing is this good for Boston? And if they're not making changes, do we kind of see that there are any other teams who are really due for that change at the top and a GM firing?
We always say, like, teams should pull the trigger, fire the coach, fire the GM. But, there is an argument to be made that stability at the top really does create a great environment. And, I don't see anything wrong with, how the Bruins are constructed. The fact that they've been a playoff team and a cup contender for this long is frankly kind of surprising. So they still have the bones there of a great franchise. So I'm not surprised that they'd keep both guys there. When you're talking about what teams should make changes, I look at the Rangers. That's a team from the head coach to the GM to whatever else you got. I think they are in need of a tweak.
So, Ryan, could we see a complete overhaul with GM and coach?
I think so, because you don't want to get into a situation where Chris Drury saves his own job by just firing Peter Laviolette. I think you need to sweep them both out. My personal thought is that you promote assistant GM Ryan Martin, who knows the franchise and has championship experience going back to his days in Detroit, and you let him pick the coach because obviously you want your GM and coach on the same page. But yeah, like looking at the standings, like think back to the Jacob Trouba trade. Like, first of all, trading your captain, and then of course the memo. I mean, it completely torpedoed New York's season right at the beginning. But then you figure it's like, okay, I'm trading Trouba to Anaheim. They're a rebuilding team. They're 3 points behind New York in the standings. Like at the end of the year, like Jacob Trouba basically got traded to a team of the same caliber. If you were just looking at pure numbers in the standings, like that is wild to consider. Like what back when the trade happened, but
yeah,
I think you have to end the Drury experiment before things go even worse. Because this is a team that right now is completely in disarray. They didn't look interested in winning during the season. They had so many chances in the past month to seize that wild card spot, and they didn't.
Yeah.
That would be my fear, is that like the memo just completely killed the organization.
Yeah. The other one that was interesting, and I saw this online, was like, you think about the trades, you think about some of the decisions, then you also think about some of the things we're hearing that are coming out of there. Jimmy Vesey talked about how he was dying because of the way he was being managed there. Zach Jones felt like he was rotting away. You had Capo Caco making some comments about young players being out before he got traded. Then all this Calvin DeHaan stuff just kind of came out. So it just feels like, whether this is coach or GM, like the management side of things is kind of taking a toll as well. Plus that Capo Caco trade, he's doing great in Seattle. I mean, for what they are, that alone, like, what is it, a 1-for-1? Didn't they just get Borgen?
I think so, yeah.
It was certainly not a trade that is probably going to age well for a guy that was a second overall pick. So there's there's problems there. That one is going to be a head scratcher if they don't make some changes. But I just feel like teams don't like to get rid of their GMs. Like they wait so long, but it could be time. We'll see. Well, hockey players, if you want to be noticed by a GM wherever you're playing, you don't need to drop a fortune on sticks when you can snag a pro-level composite stick at Stix.com. That's Stix.com. Make sure to check it out. All right, rapid fire, kicking it off with the new kid who impressed in his NHL debut, Ivan Demidov. 1 goal, 1 assist, and he did both of those things in like the first 15 minutes of the game. So really just coming out hot from the gate. Our own Ken Campbell put out an article asking, could he be the next Guy Lafleur? What do you guys think?
I didn't get to see Guy Lafleur play a whole lot growing up. Probably showing my age. That's a good thing because, Guy Lafleur is pretty old. I'll say that Demidov looks like he could be the next Alex Kovalev. And I say that in a way that, I loved Kovalev. I love the skill level. And more importantly, I think Montreal Canadian fans really love Kovalev. And, there's something about the Habs fan that they really like. Toronto fans, they appreciate guys who put on the hard hat and are going to fight, like a Ty Domi, a Wendell Clark. The Habs love their skill, and they love their Russian skilled players, whether it's Alex Kovalev, whether it's Ilya Kovalchuk. So I think Demidov could be the next line of that guy that is just excite you with his skill, maybe frustrate you because he didn't back check on that one goal
it was so bad
last night. But again, that's why he's the next Alex Kovalev.
That's totally fair. Ryan?
I always say this, because people will say like, oh, how could you compare him to a Hall of Famer? It's like, well, at one point, Guy Lafleur wasn't Guy Lafleur, right? So you look at the skill Demidov has, and he is a winger, which helps as well. There's so much talent there. And you just look at the goal he scored and the assist he had. Those were incredibly skilled plays, albeit against Chicago, but it still counts. They're still an NHL team.
Well, they lost.
Yeah, exactly. And they lost in the shootout. But I think it's fair to get excited about young players like this and say, based on what he's capable of, we could see an incredible career out of Demidov. A Hall of Fame career? Obviously, it's too early to say. It's been one game. But I'm very excited to see, like, the Calder race next year could be Demidov, Zeev Buium, Ryan Leonard, and then if any of the, the class of 2025 go straight to the NHL, you could toss some of them in as well. But already, like, it's going to be a pretty hot ballot.
I like it. It was fun. But yeah, oh my gosh. That back check Come on, buddy. You can't stop at the red line. Don't do it. Not center ice. All right. Well, Logan Couture is announcing his retirement from hockey due to injury. So he played 15 years, all for San Jose, 701 points in 933 games. Where does he rank among the all-time Sharks greats?
Top 5, I think.
Yeah.
Not top
three. Not top 3. Come on.
Well, okay. So the top 2 are obviously Thornton and Marleau. And then you get into the
Brent
debate
Burns.
of, is it Joe Pavelski or is it Logan Couture? Is it
Brent Burns,
Nabokov? Is it Owen Nolan, like somebody from earlier on that did a lot of heavy lifting? That's where I think the debate is.
I've got him 3. I've got him, my list is Thornton, then Marleau, then I'll go Couture, then Pavelski or Burns. That's my top 5. And then you're right. The San Jose, for, not a terribly old franchise. They've had some real good players, like Marc-Edouard Vlasic is also in that conversation. I don't think you put Erik Karlsson because he didn't spend enough time there, but they've had a lot of good players. So, what a career Logan Couture had. It's remarkable that he did play all 15 years in San Jose. A lot of guys have done that, I guess, really, when you look at it.
Yeah, and I think that for the most part, not always a defining factor, but it certainly helps when you think about all-time greatness for good players. Like when they spend their whole time there, like that's just something special. It doesn't happen all the time. So it's a shame that he is having to probably call it quits before he maybe wants to, but the injury, it's probably the right decision. He has to listen to his body. All right, well, the NHLPA Player Poll was released. 630 players were asked to name the league's most complete player, among other questions, but we'll focus in on this one. 33.81% said Sidney Crosby, and 30.95% said Sasha Barkov. Do we agree with these top 2?
I just love the fact that even at his age, Sidney Crosby has got the massive respect of the league. And Katie, it wasn't just most complete player that he topped the list. Like smartest player was Sid Crosby. Guy you want on a face-off, Sid Crosby. Top 5 overall forward. He tied with Kirill Kaprizov for 4th, ahead of guys like Matthews and Marner and, some really good players. So, hats off to Sidney Crosby because, I know the Penguins, 3 years now in a row, they've missed it. But despite the fact that he's been putting an otherworldly kind of season together.
Yeah, it's the first time actually that they've gone this long since the pre-Crosby era. So I guess it just sort of shows you where they are. And I mean, my goodness, if they didn't have him, it wouldn't have been close. The man tried his absolute best. He almost has gotten them there just by himself. So credit to Crosby. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, he's the reason they haven't had another number 1 pick since like the early days of his career, because he keeps dragging them up the standings. Because what else can he do, right? Like that's Sidney Crosby. He's probably the ultimate winner, right? If you think about his career at this point. Barkov, I think the way that the vote came out was very fair. Just because of age, I might give Barkov the nod right now. Like if Barkov and Crosby were playing against each other right now, who could shut who down, right? Like who would be more dangerous facing the other guy? Fantastic competition, but there's a little thought experiment to go with.
I'm still going Crosby.
Fair enough.
Like we saw it at the Four Nations. Like that was the one where he was supposed to take a step back and not be the guy. And I know Connor McDavid gets the winner. But boy, oh boy, Crosby was like a force to be reckoned with that tournament.
Yeah, he had moments.
And I mean, I watched Barkov play a ton, been there firsthand, and I'm still totally inclined to probably go Crosby too. It's just hard to bet against that guy in anything. Like if he's got any control over the situation, that he can find a way to win, I believe he's going to do it. It's just who he is. I mean, I would say in terms of like most competitive players in the league, he's easily got to be 1, 2. Maybe McKinnon's up there, but there's just some crazy drive in him. That's why he's done what he's done. All right. Well, Stanley Cup playoffs are here almost. We're so close. But what is our favorite NHL playoff tradition? There's lots of good ones to choose from, but what do we like?
Are we going beards? Or are we going specific?
Are we all growing beards? Are we doing it?
I'm not going beards. I like it when they toss stuff on the ice.
Yeah, that was the other one I was thinking of.
Like I love octopus being thrown on the ice. Like I'm sorry, PETA. Like I'm sure they prefer the rubber rats in Florida, but I like that as well. I like the baby shark in San Jose. I like the catfish in Nashville. I just think it's like the one thing that I don't think any other league throws things on the
we're
playing
weird
surface. If they do, it's because like they're really upset. Like in baseball, they'll throw like beer cans or whatever because they're upset with a call or whatever. But in hockey, it's like, yeah, this is gonna motivate our guys. Bloody octopus splattered on center ice.
Yeah,
it's true. I would say another one that I like, and I mean, this is every team does their version of it, but Winnipeg does it the best, is the whiteout, where everyone shows up in the white and you get the towels. I mean, even growing up, I remember when the Penguins would do it. That is one of the most, I mean, you just get such a jolt of energy when that whole building is going with the towels and it's just a snowstorm in there. Winnipeg does it better than anyone I've ever seen. But that one's cool too. I enjoy that tradition. But I'm kind of bummed that we can't get Michael to grow a beard for the playoffs.
I could do it. What do you mean bummed?
Yeah,
you should do it.
You got to do it. What if I told you it would help Toronto? Would you do it?
Just I don't know if I want to help Toronto. Like, if me growing a beard is going to help Toronto, then boy, it's really up to Mitch Marner, not my beard growing skills.
Do your part, Michael. Come on. All right. Well, we're certainly looking forward to the playoffs. It is right there. We are so close to the end of the regular season. But that does it for this episode of the Hockey News Big Show. Make sure, as always, follow us on social media. Lots of good stories and content coming out as we approach the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. But for Michael Traikos and Ryan Kennedy, I'm Katie Gaus. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys next time.